Awesome. Okay, I think we can move into our first topic. And so we have records review. We have Dawn and Amber and Julie with us today. So I'm not sure which one of you wants to hop on first. I'm going to pass it to Dawn, and then Dawn, you can direct your team however you need to.
All right, that sounds good. Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're so glad to be with you all today. And thank you for having us. Amber and Julie are here to really talk about the launch of Records Review. And so I'm not even going to steal the thunder with the announcements for them. I'm just going to hand it right over to them. And I think Julie, you're the one sharing slides for that. Awesome. And I'll let you give the big news.
All right. So in case anybody hasn't heard, Records Review has officially launched as of August 7th. Records Review, as well as accreditation and school age video highlights. But we are going to talk about Records Review today. So we will go ahead and get into it because that is, I think, very exciting. So I'm going to pass it to Amber though, because she's gonna get started with the PowerPoint today.
Right. Hello, everybody. My name is Amber Leslie, and I work on the quality recognition team at Cultivate Learning, as well as the professional development team. So you will see me on these coach webinars every once in a while. So we're going to start today by looking at the quality recognition cycle that you may have seen before. Today, we're focusing on records review, which is highlighted there in the red box. So after program profile is completed and the report is received, records review planning will become available in CC. So one thing to note at this early phase is after program profile, it's just the planning phase for records review. So you can't submit just yet. And one of the reasons for that is because the quality recognition cycle is intended to be continuous over the course of 3 years. So when programs complete their program profile, the work for records review has already begun. The program profile questions are tied to the records review standards, and the program profile report can be used to reflect on what programs wish to opt in or to opt out of a records review, because you can opt in or out of any of the standards. So then once 2 rounds of video highlights have been completed, a decision can be made to request a recognition level 3 or to move beyond level 3 and go for a higher quality recognition level, which is records review is one of the options to move beyond a level 3. And with records review, up to 40 points can be earned, and all documentation is submitted digitally in CC. Sorry, do we have the next slide up on my screen? There we go, now I can see it. Okay. So to summarize what we just talked about, records review is an optional component where programs can earn up to 40 points. It's completed in CC after program profile and 2 video highlights. It's for any program who wishes to move beyond an early achievers quality recognition level 3. Programs can opt into the quality standard areas of records review that are currently implemented for children and families. So any standard that's not currently implemented in a program or doesn't align with the program's vision can be opted out of. And really the main goal here is to have quality practices in place for children. So there's multiple ways of demonstrating quality. Every program is unique. And that's one of the big reasons why it's somewhat flexible. You can opt in or out of any of the standards that you wish. Okay, so this is a chunk of the Early Achievers Quality Standards and Criteria document. Julie or Dawn, would you be able to drop that into the chat? The link is in the notes in the PowerPoint. Thank you. So these are the standards here on your screen that are associated with records review. So it includes the areas of child outcomes, which are comprised of screening, ongoing assessment, and individualization standards. The second one is interactions and curriculum. That includes curriculum, instructional leadership, and preventing suspension and expulsion. And the last one there in red is family engagement and partnerships, and that includes strengthening and supporting families and transition standards. And then Dawn, I'm going to pass it over to you to jump in here if you'd like to talk a little more about that.
Yeah, so and you all recognize these as the early achievers quality standards. And big picture wise, throughout all of the aspects of the early achievers system, you're working on the quality standards. And so, especially as it comes in with program profile and the results you may be getting from program profile and that show up in those reports, those would be great things to be able to, great opportunities to check in on how people are doing around the quality standards. And once they get to that records review part, what we really do is just checking for the records, the evidence of those quality standards in place. But through the entire cycle, people are addressing the quality standards. So just to keep that in mind, it's this continuous quality improvement cycle.
Thank you, Dawn. All right, Julie, I think we're ready for the next slide.
Okay, so there are 3 standards where documentation will be reviewed, and those standards are the curriculum, the instructional leadership, and strengthening and supporting families. There are 5 standards where policy will be reviewed, which are screening, ongoing assessment, individualization, preventing suspension and expulsion, and transitions. Ongoing assessment is the one standard that has both policy and documentation that will need to be reviewed. So that is a little different. But documentation could include training certificates, curricular alignment tool, job embedded professional development documentation, action plans, the WA Kids assessment alignment tool, or some other documentation. Are there any other questions of anything that we've gone through so far? Hopefully some of this is review for many.
Could you repeat what types of documentations will be reviewed again for the curriculum, instructional leadership, and the strengthening? You gave some examples.
Yeah, so it could be training certificates, curricular alignment tool, job embedded professional development documentation, action plans, WA Kids assessment alignment tool, or there could be other documentation.
I just had a question about, you'd said these are policies that are in place, that are currently in place. And I'm wondering if there needs to be a clarification of the phrase currently. Like, is that as of the date that they start records review, 45 days before that, a year before, like, because I'm remembering sort of the old way.
Right. When they submit records review, they should have these policies should be in place.
But it is that date or whenever they begin records review?
When we are reviewing their policies should be in place in their program.
Okay. Yeah.
It would be the date of submission. So if they're in the planning phase, there's a potential that something may not be implemented yet, but on the day that they submit, those should be implemented, which is what we'll be reviewing.
I think, oh, sorry.
There's some things in the chat too, unless,
Okay.
Oh, Robin Cook. I see Robin Cook's hands up. Go ahead, Robin Cook.
So I have some centers that have started implementing assessments and screenings and things that they hadn't done before because they're interested in opting for higher than a 3. They hadn't done the record review in the past. And so how long do they need to have been doing these screenings and assessments? Is there a minimum time? Because some of them have just maybe in the last 3-4 months started doing screenings and assessments.
So if you look at the guide to the records review tool, that'll be incredibly helpful for things like that. It needs to be for screening and assessment, especially, it needs to be a current practice. Assessment needs to be done for all children who have been enrolled 90 days. And there needs to be a process for doing that for all children who are newly enrolled. So all that'll be detailed in the guide to the records review tool as well, which we will talk about in a few minutes on where that is and where you can access that and stuff like that. But that should answer those types of questions as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, there's a couple things.
Hi, Julie, I have a question. Sorry. I was booted off, but I was gonna ask, how long does a lead teacher have to be employed in order for their information to be looked at during the records review?
So if they are the lead teacher when the program submits their records review, we will look at their information, but we will ask for their start date, their hire date, and then their start date in that classroom as lead teacher. And that will inform us for how long, like how much instructional leadership they would need. Obviously, if they haven't been enrolled or haven't been the lead teacher for a year, we're not going to expect them to have a full year's worth of instructional leadership. And so, but that'll be dependent on how long they have been the lead teacher, of how many they do need. And their training. So for curriculum training and the assessment training, if they have been the lead teacher for more than 6 months, then they should have the training complete. But if it's less than 6 months, then they will not be penalized for not having it. So again, those things are in the guide to the records review tool. So that is a very helpful resource that will help answer questions like that.
And Michael, I see your question there. Did you say that people still can't submit documentation for records review? What does open mean then? And I think if I think what you mean by that is when I was talking about the planning phase, is that what you mean by that?
Hey, yeah, I was just relaying a message. Christian, if you want to jump in and expand upon that.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I heard you right, because when I'm thinking of open, I'm thinking that people can submit their documentation, and I know that there's a capacity issue. So I just wanted to make sure that I understood what you meant by open and what coaches could support providers in doing at this point.
Yes, great question. Yes, they can submit. The planning phase becomes available after they have finished their program profile. So once program profile is complete, they can start planning for records review, but they can't submit until they've finished program profile, video highlight 1 and video highlight 2. Then they are able to submit records review. Does that
Thank you so much. I had misheard that when I said when I heard you say can't submit, I was like, what? So appreciate it. Thank you.
They can submit and turn things in as of last week, 2 weeks ago.
Okay, just checking to make sure we got everything in the chat.
There is one more question. After program profile is complete, how much time after to click the video highlight? And then how much time can pass before videos are due? I'm not quite sure I understand that question, Felicia.
Hello. So after the program profile is submitted and then the points are added, and then, you know, in the dashboard, and then the arrow goes, or well, the request, sorry, the request pops up, and then you click on the request to kind of, I guess, activate the video highlight. So between that process, like, you know, if a provider's like, I'm not ready to do the video, like how long can they not be ready? Like, or doesn't matter, they could do however they want to do it. And then once that request is activated, how much time after that, like, is it like you have to do it in a month? You got 3 months, 6 months? Because somebody just recently asked and I actually wasn't positive. So I thought I'd ask while I'm here.
I think I can take that one. So videos should be current at the time that they submit them. This is Dieta. And so within 6 months. So if they uploaded it, you know, over 6 months ago, they would want to upload a new video.
Okay, and like, so when you when you've requested that you're going to do the video, after you've pushed that button in CECI, and then after that, like, do they have to have it done within like the 30 days or 60 days or something like that? Not necessarily like a video that they recorded a month ago, but to actually get active to do the video, because some are not as excited about doing the video, some are, but some are like, oh, like how much time do I have before I have to actually have it in?
Sandy,
After
are
you
you wanting
requested
to
it.
jump? Sandy, are you wanting to jump in?
Yeah, thanks, Tiara. I love that, Felicia, and I love the way you stretched it out. Feels like I'm not ready. I think what I'm hearing in your question, and let me know if I'm mishearing, but I think what I'm hearing is the details. So program profile, we tested a time frame, 45 days. We tested that, and I think the findings are telling us that that was a good kind of time frame for getting people engaged in that. So now, as we continue to test video highlights, the guidance is like, I really did. I think we need to unpack when we are guiding the providers to like push the button, for the video highlights, or, push that component. That's really like they've had an opportunity to do practice videos in the My Resources section, that when we click that area there, we're ready to bring those videos over. Like, we're feeling good about having a set of current videos that we can just move over. Felicia, let me know if I missed something. I think the guidance around coaching for that is, it's hard, right? Like, people are not ready sometimes. And it's for those that are ready, our continued motivation as coaches is like, don't worry about pushing anything. Let's practice over here in My Resources. If we get to a place where there's a lot of videos that we feel really good in practice, then let's move them over. That way, the quality recognition team is seeing kind of fresh videos and can provide that feedback that's going to be more meaningful. Let me know if there's other questions though, Felicia, or Dieta, if you want to add.
Yes, I think that is really awesome. And then I kind of wanted to, because I'm getting more like having those device supports, and like what that turnaround is when you request, or do I just always go directly to whoever that assigned liaison is to request a device to support? Because a lot of videos have been denied because they're not in the video enough or something like that, and then trying to maneuver and do all that kind of stuff. So I've had a lot of requests for device support lately, and so that's fairly new to me for that process.
Yeah, Felicia, and I may want to connect to make sure that we're getting this as super helpful as tidbits that we could share across the state. We have some good news. I know that our partners at Cultivate Learning have a lending library. I know that we also invested for each CCA of WA system, each region. So I would say connect with your regional coordinator for the CCA system. There are lending libraries as well. We just heard some possibility, so I'll call it possibility, of additional funding so that there is more funding available for equipment, Felicia, like by coach, not just by region. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that that's also coming, so that you're able to move around equipment a little bit faster, in addition to the 2 other libraries that exist, because we continue to hear, just as you mentioned, that there's still a need there.
Thank you.
There are lots of questions in the chat. Julie, do you want to go through those now, or do we want to come back?
Yeah, I've been answering a couple of them. One of the questions was, when will trainings be available for WA kids? And I'm not sure if that question is asking about teaching strategies gold training, or if that question is asking about training on like the WA kids assessment alignment tool. So I don't know if whoever put that in the chat can clarify for that. Is it Natalie or?
It was actually for both.
For both? Okay, so there is training for Teaching Strategies Gold. It is through Teaching Strategies, and that is where that training would have to be taken. I'm not sure if there's going to be training for on the WA Kids Alignment tool.
I can follow up with that as a follow-up to the coach webinar. And we can connect with our PD arm and send that information forward.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I do know that some of the OSPIs are offering the training, but they're not geared towards early learning. It's more towards school age.
Can I ask a clarifying question just on things I've heard? So for videos, the person asked the 6 month has to be, within 6 months of when you submit it, but it also needs to be the current teacher in the classroom. So if the video is still within 6 months, but that teacher is no longer there, a new video needs to be recorded. Correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to be sure.
There was also a question about training certificates for curriculum, and how old we would accept. And as long as the certificate is for the current curriculum that's used, it will be accepted. And a question about documentation for the curriculum, instructional leadership, and strengthening and supporting families. Will it also need to be mentioned as a policy? And it will not. It only needs to be the documentation. What kind of evidence will be asked to show that they are following the policies in place? For example, how will you know a program is completing or is completing screening within 90 days? At this point, they are stating and attesting when they are signing, when they're completing their records review, that those policies are what they're doing, and this is their policies that they're presenting to licensing. And so they're saying that these are their policies that are in place. And those are the policies that we're looking at.
I would just add that also this is early adopters for records review. And so after early adopters, there could be changes to the process. There could be verification or something like that. I'm not saying there will be, but just saying that remember, we're going to be in early adopters for records review.
Thank you. Does the CDA certificate include the correct number of curriculum development and assessment? They would need to show what courses were taken during the CDA certificate. I'm not sure what courses those are that are taken for CDA. So they would need to have that either in merit or submit it with their documentation to show what courses they took. And it looks like the links may not have worked for the standards document. So we'll work on getting that put back in.
I put another one in. Hopefully that one's working. Let me know if you're still having trouble. Sorry about that.
Does everything for the RRT need to be submitted all at once, or can a provider submit as they get things finished or updated? So they can work on it over time, but once they click submit, they cannot add anything after that. So they can, and I'm going to go and show you what everything looks like to a provider in CC in just a minute. And they can, so they can go in and they can work on it over the course of a couple weeks or a couple months and add that documentation. But once they click submit, they can no longer add documentation. So they have to have everything ready that they're going to submit. They can't submit for screening and then submit it and have us code it, and then submit for individualization a couple months later, have us code it. They have to submit everything all at once, but they can be working on it over a period of time.
Which is why they could start planning right after program profile is done.
I think some of these comments are about the video highlights.
I think we got most of the questions in the chat.
Okay, if the providers opt out of some standards, do they still earn 40 points for records review, or would it be according to how many standards they submit? Okay, and Amber answered that. 40 points is the total number they could earn, but whatever they opt out of, they would not receive the points for those. So if they opt out of those, then that would reduce the number of points that they would be eligible for by whatever those standards or whatever points are associated with those standards. Okay, I am going to stop sharing this, and then I'm going to share CC, and I'm going to walk through what it looks like on CC for a provider to do both planning and requesting.
So this is actually what providers will be seeing.
Yeah, so this is a test site that we set up, but so I am signed in as Lily Smith, the director of this site, and you can see that they have completed one program, or they've completed their program profile and one video highlight. So when they go to their dashboard, they have next to records review this planning. Because they're not eligible for the full records review yet, but they're eligible for planning. So they push the planning button and they get this P next to it. And so they can go back up to here and go to their program button. And now they have this lavender box with records review. So when they click on that, they now have access to the records review tool. And this is the planning. So they aren't able to change anything about the classrooms, and they won't be able to upload any documentation, but they can still plan their opt-outs, and they have to choose what fits best for their site. So we're going to do none of the above, and this brings up the RRT. So at this point, they no longer need the separate document that is the RRT. There's the different tabs with child outcomes, interactions and curriculum, and family engagement and partnerships. They can go through for all of the standards and criteria, and they can opt in or opt out of each of them. If they opt out, it just has it grays it out with nothing there. If they opt in, they just opt in here. If they click add.
Hey, Julie.
Yes.
Are you able to zoom your screen at all? I know there's some trick for that, but
in the upper right. Yep, you're going right there in that upper right hand corner. Yep, there it is. Good job.
Is that good?
Maybe one more click.
One more
Do
click.
one more click. Yeah.
Does that work?
That's better.
Okay. Sorry about that. So they can opt in, they can opt out. This additional information section, they can add anything here. They can put whatever notes they want. If there's something that they are thinking, you know, we don't have this in place yet, but we want to do this before we do records review, or this is already in our policy. This is on page 17 of our handbook. Whatever information they want to add, or they can leave it blank. It doesn't matter. But they can choose all of their opt-ins and opt-outs and go through all of them here. And again, they are not able to upload any documentation here because they're just in planning. And it is available in English, Spanish, and Somali. All three languages are available for planning and for requesting. So they can opt out, opt in. This is available. They can go away from this. They can do this on several different days. They can keep it for whatever. It doesn't matter. And then once they've finished that second video highlights, when they go back to their dashboard, then here they would have a request button and they would be able to request it. So that's planning. For requesting, when they're actually available, when it's actually available to them, for this program, they have finished 2 video highlights. So when they go to their view dashboard, this button has a request button. So they push request, and there's something here asking if they want to. So are you sure you want to request? They click OK. And now they have the arrow here showing that they've requested. So now they come back up here and go back to their program, and their lavender records review box is here right alongside their 2 video highlights and program profile. When they click on that, now they have the ability to upload their handbook, edit or add their classrooms to their quality recognition. They can create classrooms if they've have different classrooms from what they had for video highlights. And then this will be where their records review completion status is at the end. They can also upload their handbook here. And then here again, they can press their, select their program type. And then here's their opt-ins and opt-outs. They will not be able to submit until they've opted in or opted out of every single standard and uploaded at least 1 document. So it will not even give them the option until all of those things have happened. So opt in and opt out. Go here and opt in and opt out. And I see that there are things coming up in the chat. I'm not able to keep up with it right now yet.
I'm responding to some of them.
Thank you. Okay, so once all of the opt-ins and opt-outs are here, also there's a button down here at the bottom of each of these to add the handbook or documentation. So there's several different ways to add, to go and add the documentation or handbook. But we'll go here and you can add the handbook or documentation. Now you can choose it from a file, or they can select it from My Resources if they have it in CC in their My Resources files. So either way, you can choose it from My Resources. They have to affirm that they have the necessary rights and then upload it. And it'll show right here in the document, and it'll show the text right here. You can read the whole document here. I just have a test there, but it'll show the entire document right here. And it'll show the name of the document down below it. So we've uploaded 1 document and we've opted in and opted out. So we can go back to records review. We need to do the classrooms. So we'll just add the selected classrooms that were before. You make sure that everything is correct. They have a STARS ID. We need to select a hire date. And select them as the lead teacher. And then once you select them as the lead teacher, you have to select when they started as the lead teacher of this classroom. And that is how we know how much instructional leadership they should have, when their training should be complete, things like that.
I have a question. Sorry to interrupt you. So when we're selecting classrooms and lead teachers and things like that, if, like, say you did your round of video highlights and your toddler B classroom was open, but then when you go to you know, you're working on this and then your toddler B classroom gets closed because you don't have children, do you still have to have that classroom added to the records review?
No, it's whatever classrooms are open at the time that you submit records review.
Okay, all right, thank you.
So once you update, your classrooms are there. And now we've updated the classrooms, we've uploaded all of our documentation. You want to make sure that they've double checked that the documentation that they've uploaded is correct. They've opted in and out of everything. Now they have this big submit for review button down here. They do have to affirm that the handbooks uploaded are their current daily practices in place, and that they understand that once everything's submitted for review, their submission is final and they cannot make changes to opt-ins or opt-outs or the documentation. They'll submit for review. It'll ask if they're sure. It'll turn green and then it's submitted. And now up here at the top, it will give them, it'll say submitted for review on 8/24/2023. And then it's submit. And that is what it'll look like for a provider to submit everything. And they don't have to do it all at one time. They can do this over the course of a couple days or weeks or whatever. Any questions?
I have a quick question. How long do providers expect to wait before they hear back about the records review after they submit?
It could take up to about 8 weeks for us to code.
Thank you.
Hi, Julie. I was wondering, so I see where you're submitting your official policy handbooks, but I know that there are other places where pieces of evidence are needed. Where are those getting submitted? Or maybe I missed it.
The same place. You can still, so up here it says view official handbooks, but you can submit it at the same, when you click there, it will say, oh, because we already submitted it, it doesn't say it, but you can submit all the documentation in that the same place. And you can submit multiple documents here. I just did one just to show that, to upload it, but it can all go in this, in that same place.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm kind of going back to see if some of the questions.
A question about adding the page number in the additional information section, and I think the question is if that's required.
It is not required, but it would be super helpful to those that are coding, but it is not required. We're going to look at the entire handbook to make sure that we're not missing any documentation. So it won't be required for them to do that.
I want to just encourage Julie that's just kind of like a best practice for coach guidance to their providers. I'm thinking about my Head Start and early Head Start days, and all the times we were reviewed. I think the easier we can point to, look here, this is where it lives. It will help your team because you're looking at so many, not miss it. I'm just thinking of past, reviews, and sometimes it's like, oh yeah, human error, we missed that. So just want to encourage that. I appreciate that you're leaving it optional, and I think just with any program review, it's super helpful if we can draw neon arrows to it. Thanks, Julie.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sandy.
Okay, so it looks like a lot of the questions were answered as we were going through. see. How do we update the classroom information if we have a new lead teacher? So I can't go through that now that I've submitted it, because that information cannot be changed once it's submitted. But you would, before you've submitted it, you would go into the classroom and you would be able to change the teacher information. And I may get in trouble for saying this, but your CL should be able to help you with that.
Elsie just responded in the chat and said in CC they would need to click on the classroom box, then click edit classroom, search the name or email of the new teacher, and then click update. So
thank you, Elsie. Okay. Okay, and we talked about the add information boxes. Those can also be used if there's any other additional information they think is going to help us understand what's going on in their program. So whatever they feel we may need to know to help us get information about the program can also be put in that additional information box. Anything else, but we just wanted them to have a place that they could give us more information. So whatever that looks like, and whatever they feel they need to put there, it could also be blank. It does not have to have anything in it. They don't have to feel like they have to write anything in there at all.
I also want to reiterate that we are all learning this. I'm hearing kind of a lot of technical questions, and this is early adopters. This is brand new to all of us. So please, if you're having questions come up as you're working through it, we are definitely willing to work with you on that because we're learning also.
And I think some good news is that we have already had a couple of people, at least one I know, Family Childcare has submitted a records review already. So we know it's possible for people to do it. So yay. And go Family Childcare.
We've actually have 3 that have submitted. There's 2 family child cares and 1 center. So
yay, coaches, yay, providers. Thank you for that. I feel like I'm just going to invite all of our guests at CCA of WA as a system. We're just really holding on to the phrase, this is the year of learning, as we continue to test and go through early adopters with early achievers. And so it just helps us stay in that place. I feel like we should really plan to meet regularly about records review, maybe again in about a month or so after folks have had some time to kind of test it out and come back so that we can keep learning together. Because I really appreciate what you said, that you're also learning. And I'm seeing some things in the chat that Dieta's responding to around for Tony, like, hey, let us know if that's not working. And maybe that's something that we can recommend as a change. So standing in that place of influence for all of us and learning, I think it's great. So maybe we could think about the sequencing of like coming back and revisiting this so that we're not getting too far without informing it. Does that sound okay, Dieta?
That's awesome. Thanks, Sandy.
One more, I don't know how much more time we have, but I just wanted to go through just reiterating the resources that are available for
you
record.
have 10 minutes, Amber. You have till 3:10, and we're going to take a little stretcher break. So you have a couple extra minutes, and we're getting great questions. And so we'll support and turn around a Q&A as a follow-up as well. So yeah, you have a couple of extra minutes.
Great, thank you. So I just wanted to go and show that in CC, in the resource library, there are a lot of a lot of resources available for records review. Some of these were put individually in the chat, but these are available in CC, and I believe a lot of them are also available in Schoology. But the list of aligned curricula, the alignment tools that are needed, but then there's also the records review tool, the RRT, the guide to the RRT, and those are available in English, Spanish, and Somali. There's a family engagement action plan template that providers can use. There's an instructional leadership log template. Those are also available in English, Spanish, and Somali. There's some other resources that the CL team has created for records review, like a checklist and instructions of just what we went through on how to request records review and how to submit everything. Those are available in English, Spanish, and Somali, along with a tutorial video in English, Spanish, and Somali. So there's a lot of resources in CC that are incredibly helpful when it comes to records review. So I just wanted to point that out, and that's in the resource library section. And then there's early achievers resources and records review resources. There's also the blueprints. We haven't talked much about the blueprints today because we're talking about people who are ready for records review, but the blueprints are also great resources for helping those people that are in planning get ready to, maybe they need to update their policies or create some policies, and those blueprints are resources to help them with that. And so those are also available, and there's one for each of the policies that are needed for records review, and those are all available in English, Spanish, and Somali.
Thanks,
So
Julie.
all of that is available in CC.
It's also available in Schoology, and these provider-facing resources are available in BizEdge, so we can get that information. I saw some questions come up, Julie, and we have a couple more minutes. Wondering if we can get to those. Angie's asking what feedback's given to the providers when they receive their points. Wondering if you've thought about that for records review, being that you only have a handful, but if they were to miss out on a point and tried and the points were not awarded, wondering what your thinking from your team has been. Thanks, Angie.
There is a report that they will receive that tells them which standards they opted into, that they met the criteria, and which ones they did not meet the criteria, and we'll give them a reason why they did not meet the criteria. So they will receive a report just like they do for program profile and video highlights.
Also, maybe we can do some case studies in the future, Julie. I think those would be really super helpful to coaches as they support providers. And that those might be specific ones that we can look at.
Okay.
Quick distinction. There is an early achievers tab in CC. If you hover over that, it shows early achievers resources under it. That tab is out of use. So we are working to remove that. All of the resources are in the resource library. So where Julie is at here showing on the screen.
Can you show us quickly where not to go and then where to go again? Some of us, it's helpful, like not here, go here. So it's late in the afternoon. So I'm with you, Miss Tracy.
This tab is no. This early achievers tab, the resources, is no. This resource library tab with the early achievers resources is where everything is.
Dietta's laughing. Yes, it's confusing.
Okay, you get us. Okay, thank you. That's helpful, and we appreciate you like bringing that down so that we stop getting confused there. Thank you so much.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Kind of I meant to ask it a while ago and then I got sidetracked, but so you're saying that the handbook that is submitted needs to be the one that is submitted to licensing. So when they're looking at the handbook, are they going to ask the licensor if it matches?
No, we are not going to ask the licensor, but that's the affirmation statement that they have.
Okay. So it's on the system that they're not just altering their handbook to say whatever they want it to say.
Correct.
Okay.
It really should meet what they gave licensing and have on their licensing record, because that is the official legal business document. Yeah, we're hoping that the whole goal around this is that families can make informed decisions around the program and program philosophy that best meets their family's needs, right? So we're really hoping that that is one and the same there.
So it's fair to say that coaches should be encouraging, if a provider is altering their handbook because they want to adopt these practices into their program, they really should be taking their handbook and then submitting it to their licensor as their updated handbook.
Yeah, we could encourage that that connection. That's our role. We say, you know, I think this is the next step for you.
Can providers still complete a curriculum alignment and get points for a curriculum that they've created themselves?
Yes, and I will again refer back to the guide to the records review tool. All of that information is in the guide, but the curricular alignment tool can be completed for any curriculum that is not on the list of aligned curricula. And as long as it's complete, and for all classrooms that are in the program, then they can use that to align the curriculum.
Any other questions that we didn't get in?
I think there's a couple of questions, and Cultivate Learning team, you're awesome. We're going to make sure we get them from chat and send them back so that we have all of the questions answered in real time, and give people a little stretch or break here for the next 5 minutes. Thank you all so much for all of your support during the early adopters. As we move on and being available, we're excited to see you at Elevate in only 74 days. Who can check my math? I'm doing a countdown. Is it 76 or 74? We're excited. Registration's going to launch, staying with the theme of launching next week. So thank you all so much. Keep the questions coming, y'all. We'll keep track of them. But for now, I know it's afternoon. Let's get a stretcher and maybe something fresh to drink. And let's be back in 5 minutes, if that's okay.
Thanks so much.
Yep. See you in 5. All right. Welcome. So Kieran, I believe Jamila as well. I wasn't sure if Jamila's jumping in, but Karen, I wanted to turn it over to you. I think mainly it's Karen and Teresa, and I know Jamila supports also during the meetings.
All right. Hi, everybody. Thank you for giving us space for just a few minutes. We don't have anything formal, but just wanted to give you an update. We know it's been a long time being talked about, and rumors, and I heard, and so we just wanted to come here and tell you that yes, Aim to Retain is still moving forward. We are hoping to have our first soft launch, if you will, in Business Edge to begin in September. So yay, super excited. And so just wanted to share with you, if you're not familiar with the Aim to Retain project, basically what it is, it's just kind of a one-stop shop. That's what the intent is for it. And the one-stop shop for anybody who works with children, essentially, and that is registered with Business Edge. So that's the key here, is registering with Business Edge to access this project and this support. And like I said, it's just a one-stop shop for coaches, teachers, directors, admin, anyone working with children that need to access resources, kind of in, just, I need it now, I need to look for it kind of a thing, and hope that the needs are met with the resources that are on the board. So what I wanted to share with you today, and Teresa, if I miss anything, just pipe in. But just wanted to share with you that we did create a flyer that will be coming out in, I believe, next week's newsletter from CCA. And the flyer is meant for you to share with providers and just kind of start talking about aim to retain, get the word out there. And I'm going to go ahead, if it's okay to share my screen, I'm going to go ahead and show you what that flyer looks like.
Let's do it. It's beautiful.
Yes. Actually, I don't know if she's on. I hope she is. Christina Jacobson, who is a coach out of King Pierce, created this. She is part of our work group. And she created this beautiful flyer, put it all together. Just simply tells you a little bit about what Aim to Retain is meant to be. Little caveat, what it is not a funding source. So just FYI, this is not a place for funding. There are some resources in there that can support in ideas on how to use financial resources, but it is not somewhere where a provider can go in and say, I want this grant, I want that grant. We have a lot of that. That's not what this is. Anyway, back to the flyer here. So again, it just shares a little bit about what Aim to Retain is meant to do. And again, providers and directors, ideas of things that can be resourced in that area. For teachers, for coaches. And then down here, you'll see this create an account. This is a button that you can click on that'll take you to Business Edge. So if the provider is interested and wants to do this, they can click here and create the account. And Sandy, correct me if I'm wrong, if a provider is early achievers, they can, this is a free resource, but if they are not with early achievers, it is a cost. Is that correct?
That's correct. And it's a small cost. It's $25 fee for a year, but there is just so many resources for providers. It's provider facing. We do have a set number of slots available. But we encourage that this goes to administrators or owners, but we definitely give people even sometimes just trial when they are opening a program. If the coaches let us know we have a potential provider, we want to give them 90-day access, if they're thinking about opening a program, because there's blueprints, as our Cultivate Learning team said, as they create their policy handbook. There's tools like this that they can think about. And so we want to give them access early on as well.
All right, thank you. So, and down here on the second page of this flyer, it gives you more detail on what it is and what it's for. And then at the end, again, another opportunity to go ahead and create that account with BizEdge. So next, what I'm going to show you is where to find it on BizEdge. So once you log in, and everybody's still seeing my screen, is that right? Thumbs up, somebody? Yeah, okay. Once you log into Business Edge, what you're going to see are these, the main screen. You're going to want to pay attention to these top tiles right here. And we're going to always, my understanding is that this is a national platform. So all of these resources are national use. However, through CCA of WA, through Business Edge, we have a tab called Washington Resources. And this is actually where we always want to go for specific Washington dedicated resources. So if you click on Washington Resources and you scroll down, you're going to see a whole lot of, again, titles of opportunities to find resources. If you, we are located under business resource and tools. Right here it says aim to retain, leg up, right wheel. So if you click on business resources and tools, you'll see ours is the first one here. So you click on that and this is what it looks like. Right now the tiles, if you click on the tiles right now, there's not going to be anything in there. Again, we are working on getting those resources in. But these are the different categories we've come up with to help with the retention of staff. We know that there's, you know, working in centers, there might be a director that really is lost on how to orientate a new staff, or even how to interview a new staff. So those kinds of resources will be here. There may be a new teacher that doesn't have a whole lot of experience working in a specific age group. So if they need ideas on understanding child development, or things in the classroom, such as environment, what works, what doesn't, those kinds of things are in there. Curriculum ideas, family engagement. We also included anti-racist, anti-bias, and inclusion. This is also for inclusion, because we really want to also address the retention of children and families, right? That but that expulsion and suspension prevention. So we're going to have information in there as well. And then relationship building, and that relationship building is not just geared towards building relationship with children and families, but also within your team. You know, how do you build relationships with other staff? How do you build relationships with other providers that may be working in your community? How do you build that to help retain and, you know, create a community that is focused on children and the quality of care that's provided. And then owner and director corner, that's going to contain a lot of licensing, a lot of WAC stuff, right? We know that going to the DCYF website can be overwhelming at times. And so sometimes we just need to go and get this information. And that's going to be here. And then there's this box, find your coach. If a provider is accessing this on their own and they don't know who their coach is, they can click on this and it'll take them to be able to fill out this information, and then someone will contact them from CCA. So that is aim to retain. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here because I like to see everybody's faces. The hope is right now is, like I said, we're going to have a soft start. So please be patient. At first, it's not going to seem like a whole lot, and it is. It's not going to be a whole lot. We're going to have a few resources in each category, but where we're kind of stuck right now is just making sure that we are translating all of these resources in English and Somali, and that takes time. There's a lot of resources we've gathered, and we can't wait to get those on there, but we really want to make sure that we're equitable in the language aspect. Additionally, our hope is to eventually get such things as videos on here, to be able to access videos, because we know that not everybody learns the same. So we want to make sure we're addressing those that learn differently in different ways. Audio, video, written, just different types of ways to get this information, and that's going to meet the needs of whoever uses this product. So I think I have shared everything. Teresa, have I missed anything? Is there anything you want to add?
Oh, I think that was really thorough. Thank you, Karen. The only thing that comes to mind right now that is, once we open up the soft start and people start utilizing the information, that before you log off, there's going to be a very short survey, because like with anything new, we want to collect some data on it to see like who's using what region's using. Is one region using this topic more than another? Just to kind of gather some information as to how it's being utilized. And so we're really encouraging people. We're talking about like 4 quick questions just to find out how it's being utilized, who's utilizing it, what their roles are. The other thing too is when you go into impact, if you are using any information from Aim to Retain, when you go to impact to document your connections with your providers, please type in there Aim to Retain as one of the topics that you had addressed, because that's another way of us collecting data as well. And you know how we all love our data, so we just want to make sure that we have that and we can move forward with thank you right there that you can see like if we're meeting the needs of the coaches. Last thing I want to say is a big thank you to all the coaches and people who did send in information, articles, podcasts, you know, whatever information links that they had to help build this. And like Karen said in the beginning, it's gonna look a little bit small because we're not putting anything on there that hasn't been translated in all 3 languages. But a lot of people contributed to this because they saw the need and the importance of this project. So big thank you to everybody who sent us some information for that. This was Karen's little dream, and now it's turned into a big project. And we're really excited to see it coming to where it's going to be available to everybody.
I also want to add, thank you for announcing that as well, Teresa. Yes, big, huge thank you to all those of you that have supported this and continue to do so. We love having the resources because really it's going to come from you and your experience. I also want to put a plug out there that if you yourself or your team are creating video tidbits on different things that pertain to the classroom and you would like to submit those to have on business, that would be wonderful, because it really comes from you all, right? And I think it would be really great for providers to open up and see a familiar face and know that this is a community. We are working together for providers and for the quality the quality that we provide for children, right? This is a big undertaking and it's a community, and that's the goal, is to really make sure that those little ones are getting what they need. So thank you again for giving this time. I know I went over a couple of minutes, sorry about that. But if you have any questions, I will put my email in the chat box, and if you have any suggestions, anything like that, please feel free.
I love it. DJ says if they build it, they will come. That's right, DJ. We're so proud of you. Thank you, Karen and Teresa, for championing this great effort. And it reminds me of the liberatory design mindset around seeking liberatory collaboration. So I'm going to lift that as you're making me think of that, because Karen, Nelson, you're great, raising this great idea. We were able to pull together and collaborate as a system and really start introducing and creating space for coaches to create coach tools that are informed by coaches. And so there's an opportunity to continue to do that in Schoology. We'll send out some details. But thanks again, Karen and Teresa. So I hope you'll join me in giving them a virtual round of applause. And we're excited to support the soft launch. Awesome. I hope you're watching your peers give you some love. And we encourage the courageous idea sharing of others as well. All right, if there's any questions, Karen's email's there. Miss Patty's also there to support from the CCA of WA office. And we are going to take a quick shift. And we're just going to shift our mind here, our thinking, and welcome and bring in our next guests. And it's the CCA of WA data team. Welcome, welcome. Catherine, Joanna, and Sarah Kelly will be leading the next topic for us. And as I bring them, I hope you're all here. I think you are. Have so many photos here, photo tiles. We wanted to talk about, I think it's a great transition and connection, talking about our commitment to live into the liberatory design tenets and creating those spaces for coaches to inform the future of coaching services through high quality data entry. And just as Teresa kind of shared with us, how important it is to just take a minute to enter that aim to retain and support the data. Really want to use that aim to retain data for advocacy, for increased business supports. So we're hoping that we're going to have some really strong data to demonstrate how much we've leaned into it. So we're excited to be looking into that. And so as we continue to create spaces where you can inform your work, part of that is what you enter into impact that we're utilizing for advocacy here at the CCA of WA office. We're also utilizing it to lift your story where we can, and the value of coaching services, along with the work that you do with your regional leadership. And so I wanted to share, Sarah, are you here? Let me know, jump in at any time.
Hi.
There you are, Sarah. Yay, welcome. I'm going to turn it over to you in just a minute, Sarah. I just wanted to share a little bit of background.
Yeah, that sounds great.
If that's all righty. Last year, we tested the provider preferred engagement field. Sarah, you'll need to check my terms there in chat if I left a word out. But we really tested this, and this was an opportunity to say, coaches, you're the experts of the relationships you're building out there. We really need your professional opinion based on your conversations with your early learning providers. Can you tell us what you feel their preferred engagement is? So we've been testing that and iterating. Some of you have reached out to Sarah and her team and said, you know what, can we add this? We need to modify this a little bit. This is not really capturing what we think you're asking. So we appreciate your partnership. And we continue our year of learning, as we spoke about just a little while ago, because now we're in the next phase. You'll probably hear or have conversations with your regional leadership about moving from that old terminology of provider preferred engagement to now a coach recommended service delivery field and impact that Sarah and team will be talking about. And so these are tracking things to position us as a whole CCA of WA system and partners, that at the end of the fiscal year, we're in a better place and better able to speak to the story of coaching services and why the need for increased funding and the value that you all provide in the early learning landscape. So I feel like the data that you provide is really important, and you'll see that there's been a slight change, and we're asking that data is submitted within 5 business days of you doing a visit. We've just seen over time that we get more robust data entry and description when it's entered in that kind of time frame. We want to present a realistic view of how funding can impact the type of coaching that you'd like to do or that we're able to do. And so we're going to continue kind of seeking and learning and partnering with regional leadership to get us to a place that we can strongly feel confident about demonstrating why increased funding can be of extreme positive impact for us. Hey, no pun intended, impact and impact. All right, Sarah, I'm passing the baton to you to continue to talk about impact. And I hope Catherine and Joanna are here with us.
Yes, they are. Thank you so much. That was a lovely introduction. And I will add on to that our provider preferred engagement field is one of the things that we use to create a monthly caseload target. So an individual target for each of the providers about how many hours we anticipate them getting on average per month. And then we also use that to inform our caseloads. And so originally, when we wanted to include a new field, provider preferred engagement, and to revise our caseload assumptions around the caseload balancing tool, we used data from 2019 to 2021 to inform what those levels might be, and we had focus groups. And one of the things that came up a lot is that a lot of what is driving how much time you spend with a provider on your caseload is their preference and their needs. And so what I have to share is information about what the field looked like and what we're transitioning to, as well as some data showing how many providers were assigned in each of the provider preferred engagement and what percentage of providers in those different engagement levels had on average more or less or equal to the coaching we expected. And we always knew that when we launched this would give us a good data set of data around, did we get it close to what we would expect? So it is to say, we set up an expectation based on the type of care, the language, the number of classrooms, the provider engagement, and now we have an opportunity to look back and say, how often did that target really make sense for the provider, or is what actually happened? And so the need for this transition comes from all the things that Sandy shared, and in addition to looking at the data and seeing, do we need additional levels to represent what is actually happening out in the field? So I have a PowerPoint that I'm going to share. And this first slide here, thought I'll go into. This first slide here is just looking at how many providers are currently assigned in each of the engagement levels. So you can see that kind of light peachy color, those are providers that are currently engaged in early achievers, and their provider preferred engagement is blank. So I would say that overall data entry was really good in terms of how many people have their preferred engagement specified. That data will translate into the new field, so you'll be able to go in and adjust it, but it also won't just disappear if they're staying at the same level. We have a very small percentage of providers, and none in some regions, that are opting out of coaching. We have between 15 and 35% of providers were specified as low engagement, and we have between 25 and 45% of providers, depending on the region, were specified as medium. And then we have 25 to, looks like the top one in that is 35, or 11% to 35% that were specified as high. And one of the things I want to note about this is that it is so helpful to know how these providers have been engaging, because not as our system, as we've grown and as funding has not grown at the same level, and as inflation has hit, we don't always have all of the resources to provide high levels of individualized on-site services. And although we know that that's a high value for us, I think it's so helpful to see the providers put into categories in this way, knowing that it's flexible, but also knowing that's so helpful to know which providers are we prioritizing for high levels of services and which are we expecting to see less, especially because I feel like if we are to say that everyone is going to get the same level of service, it really doesn't get to our value of equity, because we know that people's needs are differential. So this is the current breakdown. And the caseload weight is based on the type of care. So we're giving a base of 2 hours and then 2.5 hours for centers. So 2 hours for FCC. And then you can see in the next little half circle language For those that are bilingual or non-English, we're adding a half hour. And then in the yellow little half circle, you can see that by classroom above 4, each classroom adds an additional 15 minutes. And then the provider preferred engagement is either plus minus 30 minutes. So we're moving, so all of those factors up to the last one will be the same. We'll still take into account the type of care, the language, the number of classrooms. The last one, the provider preferred engagement, that's the one that we're replacing with the coach service delivery. So that will inform that number that you see on the provider account that says what is their caseload monthly target, and it will inform the caseload balancing tool as well. So this is the values that we had. We had high, medium, low opt-out, and here is the new set of values that we're moving towards. And you can see that for the ones that are blank in the old value, it's just a new field. For the ones that are lined up like high and comprehensive coaching high, anyone that currently is listed as high, they'll automatically be placed to comprehensive coaching high. And then you can go in and manually change them to very high or to medium or low as applicable. So the fields we have are comprehensive coaching, instructional leadership, director focused coaching, group coaching, email resource sharing only, and opt out. And then for the instructional leadership and the comprehensive coaching, there's 2 versions. There's low, medium for the instructional leadership, and then for comprehensive coaching, there's high or very high. And we'll share some data on kind of what informed that decision in a bit. First, I want to go into the definition of these, and I'll probably call on my program team colleagues to share a little more feedback around those. Okay, sorry. So comprehensive coaching, I pulled this language directly from the contract. RBPD services may be delivered to all classrooms, learning environments in a facility serving birth through school age. This may include support for the facility leadership. So going back to our last slide, you can see that we're thinking of it like I would say reverse pyramid, where if you're at the top, you're receiving everything below it. It's possible that you're receiving everything below it. So I might say, if I place a provider in comprehensive coaching, I would anticipate that I am going into the classrooms, working with the teachers, and I'm also probably doing some instructional leadership director focused coaching. And I also might be inviting that provider to group coaching, and I'm providing email resources when I share email resources on my caseload. And then, so it's not exclusive to, you're in the classroom, it's more, it goes into that depth. And then we have our leadership and group coaching. Again, this is the language directly from the contract. RBPD support shall be coordinated with the site leader, such as the center director or family child care owner or operator. And the goal of this model is to focus our coaching services on leadership to empower them to drive that quality improvement at their own site. And again, it doesn't mean it's not happening at the comprehensive coaching. If you're putting them at this level, it's less likely that you'll be spending a significant amount of time in the classrooms with the teachers because you're focusing on the leadership. And then group coaching, RBPD supports that will be provided to facilities that are identified as low engagement or not ready for coaching services. Group coaching is not synonymous with a community of practice or a PLC. It can look like that. It can also just mean that the types of opportunities that you put together for group coaching just involve multiple sites, and it doesn't have to be regularized. It can be a topic that's come up and you invite them all to participate for a one-time workshop. It could also be some sites that have relationships that you provide, ongoing support where you're meeting, every month you're meeting at one of their facilities and everyone's joining. Another note on group coaching is it's not referencing multi-teacher so much as multi-site. So it isn't about, I went to a center and they were able to give me some time on their staff meeting and I worked with all the teachers at once, even though that feels like group coaching. In this scenario, we're defining it as multiple individuals from multiple sites. I'm going to invite the program team now to step in if they want to give any further information about those different categories.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah. I think the biggest thing is we're testing these out and we'd be open to feedback from you all as we're looking at what levels of coaching can we do this fiscal year. You know, this is going to be super helpful for us to inform you know, DCYF and our partners about the reality of our coach delivery. And so if you're feeling like, there's maybe a category that's not here that's going to be like super helpful, please let us know. We leave that door open. This is just our starting point. And like Sarah's explaining, it's not exclusive. We're really trying to kind of capture big umbrellas of information. Always, we'd love to hear from you. We want to make sure that the data we're capturing is very reflective of the work that you're doing and the services you're providing. Tony's got something for us, Sarah. Is our input going to be combined or compared at all with the data that is already collected in impact of time spent and touch points? Sarah, I think that's a question that maybe you can help.
Yeah, I think that I think your question might be answered when we get to the charts comparing the caseload targets with the actual RBPD averages. So let's come back to that. And then if it doesn't get answered, please raise it again and I'll ask you. All right. Thank you, Sandy. So I want to go back to this slide and say that when we think about where we're going to put people, just as Sandy said, it's not meant to be restrictive. It's meant to reflect that we're being flexible in how coach service delivery can happen. And you probably will find that even if you put someone in group coaching, something might come up where you decide to go on site and support them. The same with if you put someone in instructional leadership, you might get there and they say, well, there's this one teacher and I think your time would be best spent supporting them for this month session. This isn't meant to be something that you change frequently. It's really meant to be something that's representative of what is the majority of the coach service delivery over the course of a year. So I think it would be great practice if you could take a moment, maybe quarterly, to look at your caseload, and we'll make sure that this data is available to you, to say, are all of my providers in the right place, given how much coaching and what type of coaching we've been doing in this past quarter, just to say, are they still in the right place? I wouldn't change someone from group coaching to comprehensive coaching if I thought they were group coaching, but I did a couple of site visits for a specific reason, and I anticipate going forward to invite them into more group opportunities. But I would change them if I went, oh, that person was engaged in group coaching, but I've consistently been going on site. I need to adjust. What is their coach service delivery? And then that's really helpful for us because when we're pulling the data at any point in time, we can expect that on average, this is the type of coaching that the provider is engaged with. The other thing I pulled out from the contracts that I think is helpful context is this language here. RBPD services will be delivered in person, virtually, and or using a variety of contact methods to meet the support needs of the facility. Contact methods and the number of hours of service for each facility shall be based on the need of each facility within budget limitations and dependent upon provider need and request. And this is really, this field and the changes that we're making to preferred engagement and moving to coach service delivery are really about this, that we are valuing you all as having professional opinions and expertise about what it is that your providers need and how you're going to fulfill those needs, given the limitations of our resources. And so I hope that this feels like, as you're able to enter that information, it's helpful for you to look back at it and say, okay, I can see my caseload and I can see what my plan is for each of the providers. And I also think that needs in the new system are somewhat cyclical. So you might find that there's a provider who is new and it makes sense to put them in group coaching because they're getting a baseline of skills. But you might also find that someone else who is really experienced and who's just finalized their rating and finished video highlights says, I think I'm ready to spend some time just getting email resources from you. And then you can focus on someone new who might benefit more from some comprehensive coaching where you're in all the classrooms since they're establishing their procedures. So it really is about empowering you to decide where your professional services are going to be most helpful and effective. Michael.
Yeah, thanks, Sarah. I just wanted to highlight some questions in the chat if you had a moment. The first one was, I have a group of centers who have a point person I meet with. I have put together a group and impact to document this kind of activity. Is that the best way to document this?
That's a great question. Documenting your individual touch points, focus on inputting them as to how the method was. So if you worked with them as a group or you worked with a point person on behalf of them, then yes, enter that as a group contact. But make sure that each of those facilities on their account page has a specified coach service delivery model so that we can pull data and know which facilities are engaging in coaching in which service delivery model. And the same if you end up working with one provider who is generally in group coaching, you would still enter that as an individualized touch point. It doesn't have, it's flexible. We just want to know on average and most consistently what type of coach service delivery method is happening with that provider. Does that answer the question? I'm not sure.
Yes, Sarah did. Yeah. Oh no, you got it. Yeah, and thank DJ says thank you for that. And then one more: is it correct to say that provider engagement is now measured more by their preferred delivery method rather than the amount of time we spend at the site?
That's a really good question. That came up a lot around just the title of the other field. It was provider preferred engagement, and I had some feedback that said, well, I don't want to say what they prefer because I don't want to speak for them. Do I need to ask them explicitly? And the answer was no, really this field and the previous field were meant to be from your professional advantage of having conversations and knowing your provider, what their needs are. And the reason I would say further than that it's not fully based on provider preference is that we know that although we have a really high value for individualized on-site coaching and interaction, it's not always possible to provide the level of individualized on-site coaching to every provider on your caseload that you might want to do. So it really is about you making a decision about what type of service delivery model you're intending for that provider, given your expertise about them and your professional opinion about their needs. So in the end, it is coming from you. It's coach service delivery that you're placing that provider in. But we hope that you're making those decisions in partnership with the providers. Sandy, do you want to speak any more on that?
No, I think you covered it. I mean, it's just really acknowledging the expertise that our coaches carry and giving them an opportunity. You know, we've also talked about here in the future doing some direct provider surveys around you know, their preference and their needs, and they also have an opportunity to do that with our third-party evaluation and give us that direct feedback. But this is really just honoring coaches for the level of the expertise that they bring, and holding them as you know, having the knowledge and wherewithal of like navigating that relationship. And so we are very, very clear that this information is just based on your professional opinion. If we want information directly from the provider, then we would have to go down that provider survey, which we've talked about. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, and I'll add to that I absolutely agree that it will be crucial to get information from the providers, probably through the EA evaluation, about what they would like to have, and then compare that data with how many we're able to provide the services to the level that they're thinking would be useful. Because really, this is partially about managing our own resources. And we know that in the future, we want to advocate for more coaching resources. So it's definitely possible that there are providers who, if they had their own preference, they might have you come every week and work in every classroom that they have, and they appreciate you and love having you there. And yet there might be a period of time where you say, okay, I've got some providers that are ramping up on video highlights. You've just finished a round, so I'm going to place you in group coaching for a while. So it definitely doesn't have to be fully representative of what a provider would want in an ideal world.
Another question, Sarah. Is this information ever shared with anyone else, like DCYF?
It will be. That's a really good question. It will be. It will certainly be shared with DCYF in the context of advocating for more resources. It would never, I don't think we would get into a scenario where they would be looking at whether or not an individual site was what level of coaching. It's really about communicating to our funder what types of coaching services we're able to provide to support our provider community, given the budget and resource limitations that we have. Were there any other questions, Michael?
I think Sarah, add to that. I mean, I want to be really transparent, you know, we want to be, you know, great stewards of our funding, and just lean on our values of transparency and equity. And so, yes, we receive public dollars, and this data, you know, is public. I think the other thing that this informs, and why I feel is so important that we are, you know, being mindful of the quality of data that we put in, is that it's also helping us make decisions as a statewide system. And they're in your region. You know, there's a new deliverable around informing a coach model, and the data points that you enter will help, you know, your leadership also represent the best story for your region. And so I feel like I just wanted to say that, like, in transparency, like, we want transparency and we want to be transparent as well. So that, you know, we just wanted to be really upfront about that. So I appreciate the question.
I have a really quick, I saw Chelsea, a question just came in from you, but I also wanted to mention in Rebecca's question, a point that I want to make sure is clear. She says, is it correct to say that provider engagement is now more about their preferred delivery rather than the amount of time we spend at the site? So Sarah, do you want to maybe just touch on the fact that part of this field and what it's indicating is time spent, and that we're kind of using it in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what I'll do is go back to our caseload weight slide, and essentially what we're doing with this field in conjunction with other provider characteristics is we're trying to set an expectation for how much we expect to work with them on average monthly. It's also helping to, it's helping us, especially at the statewide level, to understand what does coaching look like for providers across the state, given that we know a family childcare isn't going to get the same amount of coaching as a center, and the same by language, number of classrooms, and how much they engage. So by collecting this data, we're able to anticipate how much time we expect they're going to receive in coaching, and hopefully it's also helping you all looking at those caseload monthly targets to set targets for yourself about how much time you anticipate working with the different programs on your caseload. That said, it's never going to be used for restrictive purposes. So you're never going to find that there is a disincentive from setting someone as comprehensive coaching very high, because they might cancel a visit and then you're not meeting the caseload minimum target. Or the same for if you have someone in group coaching and they had more need in a given month and you had capacity to support them, there's never going to be any kind of red flag over, hey, this person is in group coaching, which is a low level, and you did far above that. So it's really meant to be a framework and a guidance, rather than anything that is restrictive to what's actually going to happen, because we know that there are all kinds of circumstances that might influence how things are happened. That said, I am going to show you data here coming on how we compared in our given RBPD hours to the targets that we set, because I think it's helpful to reflect on, are our targets working for us, or are our predictions so far off that we need to go back to the drawing board and say, well, what can we expect a coach to provide given these characteristics that we're looking at? And then I see another question. I'd like to acknowledge that engagement is perspective, and given that there's room for bias on the coach's part to impact what is offered to providers, I'm concerned with the unintended consequences that may be at play here. I understand that concern, Chelsea, and I hope that this field is able to be used in a way that is looking at what you expect you're going to do and not change what comes up. I don't want it to be anything restrictive. I want it to be something that's a tool for you, a tool for us to understand the coaching services that we have, understand need, and not have anything like a teach to the test type consequence. Sandy, if you want to add anything to that, I invite you here.
I do. I appreciate that, Chelsea. And yes, let's call it what it is. We all come with our bias lens. And we're hoping that we could have a shared terminology at the moment around this is really also, I'll add another layer, because this is also in response to what I heard from coaches. I had the privilege of visiting 4 regions for coach listening sessions last fiscal year, and hoping to visit 2 more regions this fiscal year. And what I heard around advocacy of well-balanced caseloads for coaches across the state, not just in one region, not 2, but across the state. And how do we get there? How do we get to this place of healthy? And so this is another way for us to put some data to what we're hearing, the qualitative piece, because it's not matching. And so we hear some coaches have more than 30 providers on their caseload. Some have less than 18. And so we're trying to see, like, based on your, best opinion, where do you see that provider's level of engagement? And then, with the guidance that if we're revisiting this on a quarterly basis, that we're able to sit back and reflect and say, wow, I put this person at comprehensive, and they've really have not been able, because of life circumstances, been able to respond to my emails or requests for visits, right? And so that it's helping us make some informed decisions about, yes, I can take one more provider because this one that I thought was comprehensive is actually low engagement. And that's just one piece. But again, this is an iteration, and I'll just call it out like really openly that our data has limitations. Like, we're all human. We all enter the data. And we're hoping that with a little bit of like guardrails, less, having those 5 business days to bring it back, that it helps us do more robust data entry in some areas. And I know that a lot of you are doing that. So I really appreciate you naming that, because oftentimes, we forget to talk about that. And it's really important. We need to be really careful about data. Like Sarah said, we don't want it to be restrictive. So we need to be mindful about how we present it. And one of the plans is we'd like to share it with you first. Sarah and her team are going to be working on self-service reports that you can download and be able to review and reflect with your RBPD lead. But I'd love to keep talking about this and make sure that as we move forward, it is with a strong equity and complex lens. Thanks for that, Chelsea. Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, and there was a comment about the coaching in relation to teacher turnover, where coach service delivery ends up focusing on onboarding new teachers when there's high turnover. That's really good feedback. I'm not sure if this is the place to do that, since that would probably change over time in a way that we're hoping this is going to be a little bit more stable, but I'll take that back to my team to think about how we could capture that. I know that that is actually a really big data focus for us this coming year around our advocacy for higher compensation for childcare providers and the impact of less than adequate compensation has on that. So I'll definitely reflect on that. Thank you. I'm going to move us to some data about the caseload targets that we had. So this is in reference to the high, medium, low that we had in provider preferred engagement and the actual levels of RBPD data. The data that's pulled in here is the average monthly hours that providers received in over the past fiscal year compared to what their caseload target is. So it's grouping providers by if on average they received more RBPD hours than their caseload target would have estimated, if they equaled their caseload weight, which is if you got on average within a half hour higher or lower than the target that we anticipated, or less than you on average received less RBPD time than the caseload target would have anticipated, and then less than half of what the caseload weight would have anticipated. So you can see here in the dark blue at the top, that's the percent of providers in your region that based on the target that they had in the system, they received more RBPD service on average than that would have estimated. And then it goes to the equals in the light blue, and then the gray is the less than caseload weight, and the blue at the bottom is less than half of the caseload weight. For us, when we looked at this, it really made a lot of sense to me because some of the feedback we got early on when creating provider preferred engagement was that probably high, medium, low wasn't enough categories. And our answer then was, yes, that makes sense. You're telling me that some people are very highly engaged and some people are very minimally engaged. My answer then was, let's take the year to collect this data and then let's reflect back on it and decide what their categories we need. So this is really supporting the need for that very high. When I look at how many received more RBPD time than we anticipated, and the same for there's a fair amount that received less than half of the caseload weight, and that tells me that yes, it makes sense to have a category that's very low as well. And then this was just for the highly engaged providers. So here we have for the medium engaged providers, we have whether they received more, equals, or less comparing to their caseload weight. there wasn't a whole lot of things that stood out to me about the differences. But I will say that in some regions of the sites they just defined as high, like seeing that 50% or more needed a very high option made sense. And this in the medium, having more of them in the equals makes sense that there was a good amount of providers for the medium level. So I think this having the more nuanced, very high, medium, and then low and very low is going to help expand how many providers fall in that equals the caseload weight of received about the RBPD time that we would have anticipated based on our estimate. And then we have the same information for the low. And again, I see a case for a very low because some of those that were given low received less than half of what that caseload weight would have anticipated. I would guess that those providers probably make sense to put them in the resource email only, because I did get feedback from some coaches that when they specify someone as low, that person might have said, I don't want to receive individualized services, but I do like to receive your emails and your resources or updates. And a fair amount of providers in here did get equal to the caseload weight. So like I said earlier, we are going to be uploading the values in the way that chart up here, sorry for jumping around, specified. So if you currently have a site that's at high, they'll automatically be placed in comprehensive coaching high, and then medium and low. So it is good. It is a good time for you to be reviewing those, because if you have one of those providers that, for example, were in the low, but really received about half of the services that we would have anticipated based on the caseload weight, this is a good time to figure out, oh, is this a good case to put them in group coaching or in very low? And the same for those that are in high and received additional services. It's a good time to move them up into very high. The other thing I will bring up before I go to just questions is this is just a test provider in Impact. And you can see here when you scroll down just past their address information, this is where you can see what that target monthly RBPD hours is. So this is taking into account their preferred engagement. We're going to move it to take into account the comprehensive coaching, the coach service delivery. And so you can see what is their current coach service delivery and what does that mean for what is their target monthly RBPD hours. We'll be taking down the provider preferred engagement and taking down the old definition. And we have our new definitions here, and clicking edit, you can see how you can move them to the different levels. I think we're also going to be adding a date field here, so you'll be able to see what was the last date that it changed. That might just be a useful tool for us to see how frequently people are moving from the different categories, and it might also be helpful for you to reflect on, oh, the last time I made a change here, what was this date? All right, that is everything I have to share. I'm going to open it up to questions and feedback.
I lost my little arrow, Sarah, so I was frantically trying to find it so I can unmute and help you here. There's a question from Quimby. When do we need to have this updated by?
That is a really good question. I don't have a specific date for you now, but I think we would like it to be done by the end of September. Sandy, does that sound like a good time frame?
Yeah, I was going to have that recommendation, only because we're trying to provide some strong data for our regional partners, our regional leadership. And I feel like if we're able to give them a good snapshot, so if you're able to go in there and take some time to do that by the end of September, I feel like that would give them some really great information to inform the coach model work that we're trying to do. So let's recommend that. And I'll just check with coaches, like, can we get a consensus, thumbs up or sideways or down? Does that sound like a SMARTY goal? Is that realistic? Does that, oh, I'm seeing like, this is realistic, Sandy. I didn't eat my Smarties, but I'm glad it's a SMARTY goal. Okay, that feels good. September 30th. Thanks for asking. That's a great recommendation right there. Thanks. The other, Holly then asks, Sarah, can you discuss what would be the key difference on, oops, hold on, my chat just moved. Key difference of high and very high.
Yeah, that's a great question. The key difference is how much time you intend to spend with the provider. So if you intend to spend more time monthly with them, you would do very high, or a little bit less, you would do just high. We are going to actually place a numeric value on it because we have to have that calculation for the target caseload. So you can actually see when you make a change, if you're thinking, does this person seem high or very high? When you make that change, you can see how that influences the number. And then you can reflect on, yeah, that makes sense to me, or no, I actually think I spend more time with that provider. So for example, the one that we just saw, based on the high engagement, they were at 3 hours. So if I change it to very high and it goes up by an hour, I can say, yeah, I think I do spend 4 hours with that provider. That makes sense. Or no, that doesn't really make sense. I think I'm going to leave them at high because I think more likely I'm going to end up spending on average 3 hours with them monthly. And for some of the ones that are in the lower categories, you might also think about, we're looking at the target is a monthly average. So you might look at it and say, oh, that not every month do I meet with them. Like some months I email them and then every 3 months I go on site. So if that's the case, just know that it's like an over time monthly average. So if the target caseload amount is 1 hour and some months you have only 15-minute email with them, but other months when you do go on site you have 3 hours, you're like, okay, that's kind of going to average out to being 1 hour a month over the course of the year. So just so you know that it isn't, when you're looking at those monthly targets, it's not like we expect you to meet this month every month. It's about over time. This is the average monthly service that the provider receives. Yeah, Sean, I see your comment. The new values are visible. It is a completely new field, and we did already move the values over. It's right next to where the preferred engagement was. And we'll be taking down the preferred engagement now that we've shown the new one to all of you, and you'll just have the coach service delivery model there.
Sarah, Tony just has just a great suggestion if you can take a look at that. Thanks, Tony. I'm looking at
That's a great idea. Yes, I think we can definitely put that together.
I love these great ideas and appreciate the data team being open to iteration. Love it. I'm just looking at time and we're still doing good. Any other questions coming up? We know it's the end of the day. Did anyone check my math talking about data countdown to elevate? Was I right? Is it 74 days? Someone will need to fact check me there. Thanks, Gloria. Okay, thanks, Joanna. I love it. It reminds me of the conversation with our partners. It's like, don't go here, go over here. And so thanks, Joanna, letting us know that it's still reflecting that provider preferred engagement and that the transition will be happening. It'd be helpful to know like a time frame. And I'll just be honest, I don't like to use the word soon with our coaches. I'm like, no, I don't like that word. So I'll just be really honest. Like,
it'll be updated by Monday.
Yay!
And I
Sarah.
also, thinking of timelines, had one other announcement. I hope you all are enjoying the new user interface. We have heard that some people are still using the old user interface, which I totally understand. However, we are going to retire it because we can't keep up making sure the functionality is working in two places. And I don't want things to linger there and then start to break for folks in the old user interface. So I'm going to give everyone 2 weeks from today, and then we're going to be turning off the old user interface. So if you are, oh, sad faces. If you are someone that is still using the old one and you feel like you would benefit from some support, we're going to have some office hours. And we'll make sure to include that in the weekly update, the date that it's coming. And yes, we are working on the dashboards being functional. So we will make sure that those are up and running before we turn the other one off.
Yeah. It looks like, help me out. Oh, 73 days, 16 hours, 4 minutes. Well, I love that specificity. You get a sticker, Miss Patty. Awesome. Thank you all so much. Thank you, Sarah. And I believe that we are going to transition, and I think Leah has some dates for us and topics, and we'll get to visit with the data team more coming up. And so, oh, one more question. Come on, we can sneak it in. Thanks, Jess. Are we able to update the number of classrooms in the new impact?
No, you are not. However, that data, the reason is that data comes from Merit, and so it's uploaded. So if you change it, it'll get overridden. However, I have heard from DCYF that there is a Merit update coming up where they won't have to wait for like an application in Merit to change that. So previously, to update the like teachers and the number of classrooms, a provider would wait until they were like doing their on-site evaluation request, or they were registering for early achievers, and now they're going to be able to go in there and Merit and change it whenever it actually changes. So if you are seeing someone with the incorrect number of classrooms, I would encourage you to ask them to email the QRS inbox, and hopefully sometime in the future, they'll actually be able to go in themselves and change that whenever it changes. I'm not sure that's live yet, so for now, still email the QRS inbox, but in the future, hopefully soon. No, we're not going to say soon. Hopefully in the next month.
We're like, all of us together. Awesome. Elaine says they have a couple of people out for extended leave during this turning off the old, oh, I lost it. Interface. Are you able to see who hasn't updated so that we can work out a plan? That's awesome, Elaine. That'd be great. A great recommendation. Yeah, and it looks like Joanna says we can support that. Yeah. Jess, this is so true about classroom changes. Absolutely.
Cindy, I do have, and for Sarah too, I do have one more question before we close that we skipped over as chat started to move. So what happens, this is from Tony, so what happens if, in my professional opinion, is that a program needs high support, but due to caseload program availability among their responsibilities, I can't meet my own assessment of their needs and wants?
So that's you signifying like what you think their engagement level is not signifying that we can match it. Those are decisions that will be made with your regional leadership. That is one data point, like our initial data point. We're saying, please have that in by September 30th is like, based on your professional opinion, what do you think the engagement level is? or that is preferred, right? With that data, we'll have to make some determinations because we're not in a place where we could deliver one-on-one coaching. That's just our reality. And so that first data point is really important, Tony, because we will have to make some decisions to say, like, here's what I see is being requested or preferred. Here's what we can do. And that's the reality that we need to get to. This is what we could do with the resources that we have available at this moment. I know we're really close to time, Tony, and I invite a conversation. If you'd like to continue that via email with your leadership included as well, that would be awesome. Always welcome that. Thank you all so much. See you next month at the same bat time and the same bat channel. And the fourth Thursday of the month at 2 p.m. And we'll be spending more time with the data team. So yay, we'll be dipping into impact a little bit deeper. And also we'll have an opportunity to connect with Brightwheel. So some business supports piece. So we'll send detailed information about the agenda and what to expect next time. So until then, let's keep counting down to elevate, and we'll talk to you soon. Reach out if needed. Take care, everyone.